Good morning again, everyone. Good morning. So I'm going to start this morning again reading one of these little pieces from Tricycle. I really like these. You know, they're kind of koan length. You know, as opposed to that, there are whole articles. If you were a subscriber, I could see the whole articles, which I don't. But I like. It's kind of nice just to see the little excerpt. And so this excerpt says, practice is an act of vision, of faith, and of desire. It means performing something over and over again in the face of obstacles and disappointments to accomplish the goal. I'll read that again. Practice is an act of vision, of faith, of desire. It means performing something over and over again in the face of obstacles and disappointments to accomplish the goal. Now, that idea that practice is an act of vision, faith, and desire, that reminds me of what Dido used to say, is that to accomplish the way, we need three elements: great faith, great doubt, and great desire. Right? That's a common understanding in Zen. And so this mirrors that very closely, just a little different language. Great faith, great doubt, and great desire. Well, what's that faith about? We've talked about this before. In Zen, that element of faith is transitional. To practice this way, you need to have the expectation or the belief that something is going to happen, that these teachings are in fact true, that in fact, if you sit and practice, that realization is possible, that it must mean that you have to believe that you have Buddha nature, that we all have Buddha nature. And we do. And because of that, if we practice, we all can realize our true nature. So it also means having a certain amount of faith in what I'm teaching you. As a student, you need to put your faith in a teacher. I have nothing magical to offer. I don't have any great wisdom to offer. But I am familiar with some of the mistakes. Partly some of them I've made myself. Some of them I've seen. I have some idea about how to stay on this path, how to practice, and how to guide ourselves towards realization. So you need to have a certain amount of faith in that, in me as a teacher. But fundamentally, it's the faith in yourself, in your own Buddha nature, in your own capacity to realize the Dharma. And faith in the Buddha, and in the story of the Buddha and the truth of that and of the Dharma. Very important. Great faith. What's great doubt? Well, usually it's interpreted to mean a burning, a great existential question. Questions about the meaning of life and death. Questions about mortality. Questions about who am I? Why am I here? What's right and wrong? All of these kinds of issues constitute the great doubts. We have a reason that we came to this practice. And thirdly, great determination. And it's fun. I want to go back to the language of the other piece that I read you, where she talks about is performing something over and over again in the face of obstacles and disappointments. Right? And that's why we need the determination, particularly the obstacles. I want to talk about the disappointments separately, but the obstacles they can be very real. People with families often have great challenges and other responsibilities that they're trying to attend to at the same time as they're practicing. People with jobs that place demands on them, often well beyond the 40 hours a week kind of thing. So there are many kinds of obligations and stresses and just fatigue for those of us who are at a mature age. Fatigue sets in fairly easily, and so even that is a kind of an obstacle to practice, or can be. So the obstacles are very real, especially because we're talking about a practice that spans a lifetime. You know, Zen is a practice we never finish until we die, and so that means there are going to be many ups and downs. There are going to be illnesses. There are going to be calamities in families. There are going to be job losses. I don't know, all kinds of things that happen. And somehow we need to persist with our practice through that, not get completely derailed, not get completely lost. Although that happens sometimes, it's certainly, and it's certainly not impossible to come back after a hiatus. But anybody who's been there knows it's very difficult. We kind of have all our guilt and our shame and our, it can be hard to walk back into a zendo after being away for a period of time. We just had the Shuso Hosen ceremony for Mary Jo. And Mary Jo left practice for, I think, at least 5 years. And so she's extraordinary in that she came back. There was something of the Dharma burning in her that even after all that time, she was drawn back. And I really admire her for that, because it's very hard to do when we've kind of let something slip like that, regardless of the reasons. But I want to talk about the other part, the disappointments. What are the disappointments that come with practice? And I would say, generally speaking, that the disappointments come because of our illusions and attachments, our expectations. If we hold practice as just practice, it's just the thing that we do. I mean, how many days of the week are you disappointed when you brush your teeth? You might be disappointed when you get to the dentist. I'm familiar with that one. But in general, right, the toothbrush is just something that we do. We don't bring a big expectation. Oh, this morning it's going to be really fantastic. My teeth are going to be sparkly, and it's something you do. But if in Zen, we tend to add something more, right? I'm going to feel better. The world's going to look different. I'm going to be smarter and more handsome. I don't know. We have these ideas that somehow practice is going to transform us. And those ideas, some of them are wrong. Like those of you who think this is going to improve your appearance, I'm sorry to say that that's probably not going to happen. But many things will happen. Practice does change us. It changes us in amazing ways that we cannot imagine when we start out, right? But if we allow those to become desires, that's where the disappointment comes in. And that's one of the greatest threats to our practice. Because practice happens at its own pace. I've talked about the walking in the fog metaphor that Suzuki Roshi used. The idea that just like walking in a fog, you may go a very long time and you may not notice any change. You don't feel wet. And then you come inside and your clothes are dripping, right? And that might take weeks, months, more likely years. And it's not linear, sometimes you'll go a long time and you think nothing's happening here. Nothing's changing. And all of a sudden you go, oh, wait a minute, everything changed, right? And sometimes the changes are dramatic. But the idea of that change is our attachment. And if we have that attachment, then we're consistently going to be disappointed because things don't happen fast. They usually don't happen in dramatic ways. And so practice needs to be an end in itself. We talk about non-attainment. We talk about there's nothing to attain. Practice is an end in itself. And practice in itself is transformative. Just sitting every day transforms us. Just going to a retreat transforms us. I had an interesting experience with the treetop retreat this weekend, which is still going on. And when we end today, I'm going to pop over there to see the Tokoro ceremony. They're going to be having a novice priest ordination for Brad, who some of you know because he sat with us on occasion, and also Pat, who's Todd's student from New Hampshire. Anyway, that's this morning. But I had a really interesting experience. The other morning, I sat for a while by myself, and then I joined the retreat and sat with them. And what was more, I've sort of known this before, but it was really much more obvious to me for this time for some reason, was that sitting with the Sangha was palpably different. Even though the Sangha was, 30 miles from here, it was different. I could feel it really clearly. And not only that, but if you haven't sort of done one of the online retreats, at various points, the teachers leave to give Daisan to students. And there were 3 teachers there, Jim and Peter and Todd. And so at some point during the sit, the 3 of them went out to their various Daisan sites. And then 2 students go out with each teacher, because there's one that goes into Daisan and there's one that's sort of on deck waiting to be the next student in. So 6 students and 3 teachers all left the Zendo, and the retreat was small. So that left, only a couple of people, maybe only one person in the Zendo. The Zendo was pretty empty. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. So I'm starting to talk about a sort of a Zazen field that's created. And I think we all create it individually, but when we get together, it's much stronger. And it's completely non-local. And I'm not sure, I'm kind of just kind of curious about this now, the workings of this. But it's quite fascinating. So it really, to me, is a great affirmation of the power of online practice. I'm not going to say it's the same or it's as practicing in person, but it has great power when we can get together like this, when we can sit together, when we can practice together. And maybe some of you have noticed that, that sitting together, it's deeper, it's clearer. It's really nice. So I want to talk a little about the last part of what she says here. She said, she says, it means performing something over and over again in the face of obstacles and disappointments to accomplish the goal. So if we really let go of our expectations, and we may need to do that repeatedly, so we come to this place of practice is just practice. Practice is just practice. It's just what we do. It's just part of our lives. Then what's the goal that we're accomplishing? Because she says to accomplish the goal. In my view, there is no goal. And as soon as we establish a goal, we're putting ourselves in that. We suddenly have a measure, a yardstick, a place that we're going, and therefore disappointment. Right? We can only be disappointed if we've got some expectation that we've set up for ourselves. As soon as we do, we've created a trap. As soon as we do, we will have a very hard time following this as a lifetime practice. If our practice is in the right spirit, then there should be no disappointments. Right? In the same way, brushing your teeth this morning probably wasn't disappointing, unless you had run out of toothpaste or the dog ate the toothbrush or something like that. So that should be the spirit of our practice. The great faith, the great doubt, and the great desire. Oh, wait a minute, who said that? Where did that desire come from? So that's the paradox. The paradox is we do need some kind of desire. Great faith, great doubt, great desire. So how does that make sense in the context of what I just said and in the context of our practice? I think that the answer is that the desire needs to align with our bodhisattva vows. That it's not a personal desire. It's not getting something for me. It is doing something for the world. It is doing something for others who suffer. And this is not easy to maintain, but this is something I think if we can remind ourselves. Why are we practicing? There's a beautiful story about a monk in China. And I think Dogen tells this story when he was there. And at the start of every practice session, the monk would bow to his cushions and then give away all merit of that practice for the benefit of other beings. Not to benefit him at all, but to benefit other beings. That's the wonderful spirit of practice. Can we be more engaged? Can we be more fully human? Can we be more willing to acknowledge and deal with the suffering of others? Now that's sort of a high class desire. It's not usually what we come with, right? We come with, look what the message that's out in the culture. Oh, Zen is going to help us with stress, right? Zen is going to help us cope with the challenges in our life. And again, as these truths are complex. At one level, that is true. But at another level, there may be more occasions when Zen makes us more stressed because we're not able to put on filters and block out reality. Because we need to deal with the challenge of suffering and not ignore that suffering. Probably the greatest challenge in our society today and the greatest fault is self-centeredness. Is that as a culture, we have forgotten how to care about others. We have forgotten that part of our function is to help others. That's how communities functioned, right? People got together, whatever, family, their crop didn't come in, everybody else took something from their crop and they shared it with them. They didn't go, oh, well, they didn't work hard enough, they don't deserve it. There was a common goal of helping one another and surviving. I mean, I see it very clearly. Here in Unity, we have an Amish community, and they're still functioning like in the 1850s. And there's some downsides to that, but there's other parts that's just beautiful. They're constantly helping each other. They're constantly working together. And they have a spirit of community and a spirit of caring for one another. It's very beautiful to see. We don't see that much now. It's all about me and mine. Getting mine, and if you don't have, F you. That's what sort of the American ethos has come. Even not that long ago, right? My parents' generation, came through the Great Depression. How did people come through the Great Depression? They helped each other out. They were immigrants, extended families took care of each other and looked out for one another, and so on, in ways that are now lost. I think almost every problem that we have in this culture today can be traced back to self-centeredness. So in the Dharma, our goal needs to be working for the benefit of others, living for the benefit of others. In the broadest sense, both in the human world and in what my friend calls the more than human world. The Dharma calls on us to take some responsibility in a way, it is just exactly the right cure for this disease of our times. The indifference, the separation, the fear, the loneliness, the hatred. All of these things that arise out of self-centeredness, arise out of our creating self versus others. So in one sense, our practice has no goals, and yet in another sense it does. It has this goal of opening up to the reality of this whole universe, and not just our tiny, tiny corner of it. Great faith, great doubt, great determination. You know, our way is simple, but it's not easy. It's not easy. The dog was about to overturn the table. It's not easy to show up sometimes. It's not easy to sit when we're tired, when we've just had a long, frustrating day. It's not easy to sit when our schedules are jam-packed. Our lives, I'm just astonished by how complex our lives are today. You know, I still work, but I only work maybe half time, something like that. I don't know how I ever had a full-time job. I mean, you know, working half time, I never have a spare minute. You know, my friends who are retired, nobody is bored. I know in previous generations, people were retired and they go, oh, what am I going to do now? No, I don't know anybody who has that problem. Life has so much complexity. And so it's hard sometimes. You know. And in that sense, the path of practice is challenging. Just to keep putting one foot in front of the other. All we have to do is keep putting one foot in front of the other. And sometimes that's hard. But you're all doing it. You're all here. You're all showing up. You all care enough to practice. And that faith will be rewarded for you. This practice will transform your life. When I lived in Vermont, we used to listen to Canadian TV. And there was a guy from Dorian Suit. I had a commercial all the time. And his punchline was, I guarantee it. Well, I guarantee it. If you sit, your life will change.
I have a couple of things to respond to your talk, Peter. One is I am in the middle of a graduation from high school for my grandson. And that is bringing back memories of my own kids um, and the fact that our culture, and this goes to your comment that our greatest fault today is self-centeredness. And it is so much part of the culture. I watch these children who think they're adults, and there is just event after event focusing on you and how wonderful you are, and let's give you awards night and prize night and championship night, and then graduation ceremonies and parties and post graduation. It's just so much just right on them. I don't know how. I mean, I can understand how difficult it would be to get out of that because of the way the system is built. So, and when you mention the Amish, you know, my guess is they would do that sort of thing differently. But that's just one observation. Um, the other thing that I wanted to talk about was you talked about how if you leave practice, about how Mary Jo had left for 5 years and it's so hard to come back. And I have found with my own practice that while I haven't physically left, I certainly have gone through times of feeling unmotivated about it. Um, and I think an example is I did during the winter session, and I was miserable the whole time. My back hurt and mind was here and there, and I just came out of the whole thing, and I had expected that, oh, I'm going to be energized, and I wasn't. I was just uncomfortable and grouchy, and that was that. And I kind of thought, well, maybe retreats just aren't for me. I'll just keep up my Sunday practice and not do a retreat. And then I joined the group for the full day on Friday, and I also told myself, if it gets too uncomfortable, I'm just gonna leave and do child's pose or something to ease my pain. And it was a whole different experience, and I felt very much connected to everybody there, as you had described. And so I think that uh, I have been more or less present to the practice over time. And and the one abiding thought that I have, which you said today and have said many other times in the past, is that sitting transforms us, not will transform us, but does transform us. And so it's not a goal, and you may not realize that it's transforming you when it's transforming you, but it happens. And I have found that to be one of your most helpful messages to me, that if you do it, you are transformed. You may not appreciate it at this point, but it happens. So, thank you.
Thank you. Of course, Dogen says we sit because we are already enlightened, right? We practice because we are already enlightened, and that's an interesting idea. To me, that suggests that there is that part of us knows, it knows itself, and it wants to be expressed. It wants to come out. And so we practice.
So I had this weird thought. I got to practice medicine for a long time, and in my day, I'll just say it that way, for a good while, we had the freedom to actually be uh, conveyors of care and love. I'll just say things have changed a lot. It's a lot harder for physicians these days. And it was such a gift. So it's kind of like, um, doing Zazen every day. You go to the office and you are in the thick of it, and you don't have much choice. You see all these people, and you get to give. And so my sadness is realizing how much of that consistently seems to be attenuated and lost in the culture as I'm seeing it. So again, a physician today, boom, 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 you have this much time for patient. It's a calculation, you're a widget. We've taken it away. And I think we've taken it away in so many aspects of our society. Um, you know, being somebody, uh, even just somebody, you know, at a grocery store where you knew everybody and you could just be, you knew what somebody wanted, you could enjoy giving them the thing that you knew they were going to ask for on Sundays. And now it's boom, 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 just so much depletion. And so the Zazen feels like, when you describe it the way you describe it, as a habit and commitment of offering yourself, that's kind of what, again, we used to have more in the culture. And it's a terrible tragedy how much we've lost of it. And then I have to say, another thing is, we're here with the wild foxes. So I see the foxes hanging out together with mama.
We have literally
There's a family of foxes here.
foxes living in our yard.
So right now, I keep looking to see if we can show them to everybody. So there were 4 little ones. Now there are 3 little ones. I don't know where the other one is wandered off. God forbid something's happened. But anyway, so mama and the kids, or dad and the kids, are constantly trying to, they're kind of grooming each other. And my fantasy is they're trying to get the ticks out of each other's hair, but something, they're grooming in some way, that they're using their teeth to get something. And what I had this image of is, and this is kind of bizarre, but in the old days, we heard about, the image we had is that people would all sleep on one big bed. I don't know if you guys heard about, like in Norway, for instance, huge beds, and everybody slept together. And I used to think to myself, how could people sleep that way? And then I imagined that if you're part of the community, if you're part of the den, you're not thinking about yourself, you're sleeping together and you chew off each other's ticks. And I had the sense that there maybe really was a time when people were so connected that they really could sleep in the same big bed together and take care of each other, and it was natural. And for us, it's like, well, how can I sleep with all these people around me, and maybe I'll get their lice? So anyway, it's kind of strange, but I feel like maybe there really was a time. These kids are, they're in a tumble all the time. They're in the tumble with each other. We're not like that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. the more that we separate, the next logical step is to buy the gun to protect what's ours. Right? I mean, if we're in a community that's sharing, we don't need a gun. You want some of my grain? Of course, come on over and get it, and that sort of thing. But the more that we separate, the more that we create another, the more that we suddenly have the fear and the paranoia that becomes harming ourselves. That's why I see this as the root of all the problems in the culture right now. I mean, there've always been dangers. There's always been aberrant individuals and so on and so forth. But a lot of it comes out of this idea that I've got what's mine, and I've got to protect it against you, as opposed to I've got to share it with you, or I've got to help you get your own. But somehow, as the responsibility isn't all about me and mine. And that's the idea of the one body. Everything in the one body is affected by everything else. I mean, that's the great illusion, right? That the illusion is that we are separate. The illusion is that somehow I can be happy as long as I get enough stuff for me, and it doesn't matter what my neighbors have or don't have, or what this country has or doesn't have. And that's a lie. That's an illusion. And so people are constantly unsatisfied because no matter how much stuff they get, it doesn't create the happiness. It doesn't create the security. If anything, it's the opposite. It creates more insecurity. There's a reason that rich people have gates around their property and poor people don't.
Peter, I'd like to go back to your great faith, great doubt, great determination, because faith, coming out of my particular background, is a word I'm allergic to. And so I think not so much in terms of faith, which to me is a belief kind of thing, as trust, which comes out of experience. That when you learn that the crampons that you're using for rock climbing will hold you, then you trust in them. When you learn that the sitting over time doesn't drive you nuts and does do some other things, then you learn to trust it. And the same, the teacher doesn't undercut you, or the teacher doesn't support your weaker areas, and you learn to trust. And once that trust is there, then doubt is not undercutting. And determination just comes naturally because you trust what you're doing. So you go ahead and brush your teeth because you have found out that it works. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think, again, that's why I talk about it as conditional faith, because when you actually do have the experiences, like you're saying, you don't need the faith anymore. You have trust. You do have, because it's out of your own experience. Back to Shakyamuni, what did he say? Don't believe it because I said it. Experience it for yourself, right? That's one of his most important teachings, as far as I'm concerned. And whether don't believe it because I've said it. Only experience it for yourself. That's the other thing that drives this determination. That you're somehow, there's some curiosity. What's this all about? Right? There's some curiosity. What did this Buddha guy experience? That was so marvelous. And there are people like Dogen that tell us that we all have the capacity to experience that. You know, that's amazing. You know, it's not that we're special. It's not that we're not ordinary. It's that we are absolutely ordinary. This is the ordinary nature of humanity. To experience non-separation, to experience the one body, to realize our true nature.
I want to talk about briefly, and I'm not sure if this is a statement or a question, but I'm interested in talking about the ambition that exists somewhat in this practice, and maybe getting rid of the ambition as part of the practice. But you know, you got to have some kind of ambition's a weird word, but something drive maybe to sit for 25 minutes a day to sit, and then, like, you know, memorizing koans every week or every other week or every month, depending on how well you do. And then, like, oh shit, yeah, I got the koan right. Yeah, whoa, that feels good. Or no, I didn't. Oh, that feels crappy. And like, oh, you know, there's like levels. Like, oh, well, you know, when does Raksu time come? When, like, oh, people are getting their heads shaved. Oh, that's exciting. All this stuff, right? I don't understand most of it. I don't, but so I find myself in relation with all those thoughts and all those emotions and all those desires. Like, you know, ooh, this is a long koan. I gotta get to memorizing it. And no, there's ambition there. Again, I think recognizing the ambition is part of the process, but I thought I'd throw that out there because it fascinates me, really.
No, well, the last thing that you said is absolutely, it is part of the process, recognizing that it's ambition and letting go of it, right? I mean, it's, you know, one of the three things is determination. We have to have determination, but we can't let the determination become the driving force, because then it's attachment. And then when it doesn't happen as fast as we think it ought to happen, or, you know, we get disappointed. And you know, the number one reason that people quit Zen practices, and I haven't done that like a survey, but I'm pretty convinced of this after all the years of doing this. Number one reason that people quit Zen practices because they can't sit without having thoughts. People go, you know, people have been practicing a week. How's it going? Oh, I'm still having thoughts. You know, and you can say time and again, that's okay. You're going to have thoughts until you die. If you don't have thoughts, you're going to need a neurologist really quickly. I don't know, something like, you know, but that's the number one reason, you know, so that, you know, so even at that simple level, the achievement desire can throw us off, you know. And I think maybe if anything, that's why I've kind of, my hyperbole is stacked in the direction of suggesting that the non-achievement aspect, you know, but what you said is true, Robert, and we wouldn't even show up if it wasn't. But I think we also kind of need to kind of constantly counter it, you know, gonna have thoughts. If you think you're not gonna have thoughts, the Moonies have a place for you. Are there still Moonies? You know, but you know, in Zen, it's always going to be there. You know, and always imperfect. Somebody said something to me recently about purity. If you've got any delusions about purity, Moonies. There's no purity in Zen. There's no perfection. Right? There's just who we are. And we want to be better. We want to do better, of course. And we will never be perfect. We will never get it right. You know, we'll just little approximations along the way. We will do better. Because we're not Shakyamuni Buddha. But we can do the best we can.